This is Dave, and I'm here with Ethan, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 232-inch.
On this episode, I recap my experience at Big Slick 2024, the celebrity charity weekend in Kansas City, Missouri, featuring Weird Al Yankovic.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Hello, Ethan, and hello, wonderful listeners. From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we want to wish all of our listeners a happy Pride Month.
Everyone is welcome at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, except, of course, intern Frank and Nazis.
Of course. Oh, and by the way, Ethan, welcome back from Kansas City. I love all the pictures you sent me, and I'm so excited to hear all about your time in Kansas City at the Big Slick Celebrity Weekend events.
Oh, Dave, I am so excited to tell you all about it.
Yay! All right, but first of all, you had yourself a birthday last week?
Oh, I sure did, Dave. Same time every year.
Well, from all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, happy birthday to our very own Ethan Allman.
Thank you, Dave. Oh, by the way, I keep checking, but I haven't seen anything come through the mail from you. Did you ship my present yet?
I don't remember receiving a present from you on my last birthday.
Oh, forgive me, Dave, but I didn't get you anything last year.
Don't worry, I do forgive you, and that is your present.
Thanks. Okay, let's move on to what's happening in Weird Al related news.
We'll have much more on this later, of course, but this past weekend, Weird Al was a celebrity guest at the yearly charity event Big Slick in Kansas City, Missouri.
Weird Al took place in the Big Slick Celebrity Softball Game at Kauffman Stadium, as well as the Big Slick Party and Show at T-Mobile Center, and I, our very own Ethan Allman, was at both events and will be filling you in on all the great details in just a little bit.
Also, as part of their silent auction, Weird Al donated 4 VIP tickets to his upcoming 2025 tour.
Yes, and the final bid for the auction was an incredible $3,050 or $762.50 per ticket.
That is great news for the Big Slick charity, and of course, we're super excited to see something in writing from a semi-official source that there will indeed be a 2025 tour.
Now, interestingly, when the silent auction first launched on the Big Slick website, details for the auction item mentioned that tour dates will be announced in September 2024.
However, that sentence was later removed from the silent auction details, so as of right now, it's still up in the air when tour dates will be announced.
Well, regardless, we are, of course, very excited about the 2025 tour, and we've started saving our wooden nickels.
Overall, the Big Slick event raised nearly $4 million for charity. So from all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, a huge congratulations to everyone who organized, participated, donated their time or money, or otherwise supported Big Slick.
Aw, thank you, Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. Now, lots of great pictures and videos came out of the Big Slick weekend events, with Weird Al himself sharing a picture on his social media of his very unique batting stance at the softball game. And while I don't know a lot about baseball, Dave, something tells me that wasn't a legal batting stance.
It sure isn't, but it definitely was hilarious. Among the many pictures shared over the weekend, 2 in particular went viral, including one Al shared of him and Stranger Things stars Gaten and Finn with the caption, "Yesterday was pretty bizarre, but stranger things are happening today."
Now, very quickly, online news outlets and Twitter fans immediately latched onto this picture and started speculating that Weird Al was teasing his cameo in Stranger Things Season 5.
Despite all this speculation, it seems to have just been a spur-of-the-moment selfie, but hey, let's face it, stranger things have happened.
Ah, I see what you did there, Dave. Another selfie that went viral was one of Weird Al with Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce with the caption, "Okay, Taylor, it's either him or me," referring, of course, to Travis's girlfriend, Taylor Swift.
Two of Taylor Swift's bandmates shared the picture to their Instagram stories with the caption "manifesting," seemingly joking about Weird Al getting in with Taylor Swift. And even some Swifties used this selfie to fuel speculation about Travis proposing to Taylor.
And finally, if you were watching the Today Show on NBC on Monday morning, you may have caught a very brief glimpse of Weird Al at the Big Slick Friendly Feud event in Al Roker's recap of the weekend.
And speaking of selfies, Whitney Avalon, best known for her Princess Rap Battle series on YouTube, recently shared a selfie of her and Weird Al together, hinting a video featuring her and Al was coming soon.
Now, we're big fans of Whitney here at the podcast, and we've met her at Weird Al shows, so we are super excited to see this potential video.
If you're not familiar with Whitney's videos, you can check her out on her website, WhitneyAvalon.com, or search for Princess Rap Battle on YouTube.
Since our last episode, Season 2 of the Netflix animated series Mulligan has dropped, and yet again, Weird Al makes an appearance.
According to friend of the podcast, Devlin Wilder, Weird Al appears in episode 2 and even sings a song and shows up again in the credits. Wow!
In other podcast-related news,
Wait. There are other podcasts?
I guess so. So, in other podcast-related news, Weird Al appeared on the May 28th episode of Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan.
You can check out the episode on Apple Podcasts, or most likely wherever you are listening to this.
Now we have some sad news to share today. YouTube singer-songwriter Mark Gormley has passed away at age 67.
Mark was perhaps best known for his breakthrough video, Without You, which has over 4.8 million views on YouTube.
In the June 28th, 2009 episode of Web Soup, hosted by Chris Hardwick, Weird Al does an impression of Mark, including wearing a wig and dressing as him, and even goes as far as to cover his song Without You.
From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, Gil and chill in peace, Mark Gormley.
And finally, we saved the best Weird Al-related news for last.
Our very own Ethan Ullman reports that American Greetings has updated their website, changing the name of their e-card from Al Yankovic Birthday Smash Up to Weird Al Yankovic Birthday Smash Up.
What could this possibly mean? I really don't know. I'm wondering.
I think it means that this episode is brought to you in part by vegan burrito restaurant Burrito Burrito, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito Burrito and Burrito Burrito your Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger for mouth-watering, loaded, dare I say beefy, vegan burgers. From Albany to Uranus, Burrito Burrito and Wizard Burger feed the hungry with out-of-this-world, plant-based, real food, always vegan style. Visit BurritoSquare.com and WizardBurger.com to order ahead.
And now it's time for What's Happening in Past Guests of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast-related news.
News broke last week that there is an experimental feature documentary in the works called How We Learned to Love the Fump, all about the Funny Music Project.
The teaser that dropped on YouTube features episode 134-inch guest Insane Ian, episode 4-inch guest TV's Kyle, and more from our friends over at The Fump.
Follow the documentary's journey over at Love the Fump Film on Instagram.
Episode 124-inch and episode 125-inch guest Joseph C. Krause has released a fantastic new song called Philip Glass Polka Etudes, Book 1.
It is a Weird Al-style polka medley of the classical-style instrumental music of Philip Glass, and it's pretty stinking majestic.
You can check it out by visiting his website, josephckrause.com, and that's Krause.
And now it's time to check out what's happening in Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West related news.
While we await the release date, the first single off of Jim Kimo West and David Vito Grigoli's new album has dropped, Fragile 2024.
It may sound a bit familiar to you, and that's because Kimo has previously covered this Sting song, but he promises this new version has a cinematic world feel and features lots of guitars and unusual stringed instruments.
And in other new album-related news, Chemo's new album, Xanthi, recorded with Josh Jaffe, will be released soon, along with what is promised to be an epic album release party in Los Angeles.
And in more Chemo collaboration news, he also has a single dropping next month with the acclaimed pianist Charu Suri.
But before that single, Chemo has said that he will be debuting an all-new website later this month.
Be sure to head over to JimChemoWest.com to see the current design while you still can, and see if you can catch any of his newly added tour dates.
And now it's time for what's happening in Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast-related news.
Attention Southern California listeners. Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast recently received exciting news that they will be taking part in an event at San Diego Comic-Con later this summer.
More details to come, but we wanted to share the exciting news as soon as we heard and give you all plenty of time to be disappointed that tickets sold out in November 2023 and are not allowed to be exchanged or sold on the secondary market.
So if you were one of the smart ones and planned ahead and bought tickets already to San Diego Comic-Con just in case, we look forward to seeing you there. Oh, and speaking of buying tickets to something just in case, Ethan, I would love for you to tell us all about your time at Big Slick.
Well, Dave, I would be thrilled too. Yes, I bought tickets back in March, speculating that Weird Al would probably be taking part in Big Slick, as he's done for the past couple of years. So myself and Aaron Henry, we bought our tickets the day they went on sale, and then we sat and we sweated and we waited for Al to finally be announced as someone. And they really took their dandy little time waiting to announce Al. They waited till like one of the last few days to say he was coming. And so as soon as they did, I bought my plane ticket. Luckily for Erin and her husband, they only live a few hours away, so they only had to drive, but they still had to figure out, someone to watch their dog and stuff. So it was still stressful, Dave, for them.
I'm sure it was, but I'm glad that gamble paid off.
Yeah, so, for years we've been hearing about this Big Slick thing, Dave, and it always seems like a blast, not only because Weird Al's there, but because there's awesome celebrities, fun events, and it's a great way to raise money for charity, and they do so much for these wonderful kids with childhood cancer, and it's an unbelievably great organization. So, the event takes place over a couple days, so there's different levels, and you can pay a ton of money to do exclusive parties and pre-show things and all this stuff. Dave, I didn't do any of that. I just did the core 2 events that are open to the public without paying multiple thousands of dollars. The Big Slick softball game and the Big Slick party and show. So that's what I'll be talking about. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to any of the special VIP events or do any of that stuff. So I'll just tell you my adventure as it happened. And it happened I had to leave my apartment at 4 a.m. on Friday morning to catch my flight.
Wow.
So I'm in the car. I have a 6 a.m. flight out of Albany to eventually get me to Kansas City. And I have to take an Uber because that's just the easiest way to get to the airport. And I'm getting out of the car, and I go to the trunk to get my bags out, and the driver pops the trunk, and as I'm leaning forward to grab my suitcase, he starts driving away with such a speed that the trunk slams down and hits me in the head. And then he keeps driving. So I'm like, hey, I'm like yelling, I'm like banging on it. And the guy's like, oh, sorry. I'm like, geez, well, now not only am I up at 4 a.m, I now have a major headache. So
oh my gosh. Was he just gonna run off with your suitcase?
I just don't know what was going on. I think the guy was just clueless and, clearly shouldn't have been driving at 4 a.m.
Right. I don't think anybody should be driving at 4 a.m, right? Just for the record.
Right? So, and that's why I didn't want to drive at 4 a.m. So anyway, nothing eventful happened to me on my travels after that potential concussion in the airport drop-off area.
Jeez.
And so I land in Kansas City after a connection flight, and I get an Uber and I go to my hotel, and I just went right to bed. I was like, I need to get some sleep before we start all the fun. So I slept in for a couple hours, and then Erin Henry and her husband Dan, they were staying at the same hotel as me. By complete random chance, they were in the room right next door to me. And
oh, wow.
so we hopped in their car and we drove to their stadium. And I think our listeners may remember Erin because she's been on a number of our bonus episodes, and we've talked to her a bunch. She is, at this point, 8 months pregnant with her first child. So she is very, very
Incredible.
pregnant. And she was such a sport through this whole thing, despite being uncomfortable with 8 months worth of baby inside of her. So we get to Kauffman Stadium to see the Kansas City Royals versus the San Diego Padres. And how this event works is they let people into the stadium early, and before the Major League Baseball game, there's the celebrity softball game. So we're kind of worried because it's raining at this point. It's like, it's not super hard raining, but it's kind of on and off sprinkling. But the forecast said it was going to be raining that afternoon, right when the celebrity softball game was happening. So we were really worried that it was going to get canceled.
Right.
And so we get there, we park, we get out. Literally the first person we see in the parking lot is this woman wearing a baseball jersey, like a custom super high quality jersey that says Yankovic 27.
Oh my, wow.
Can you believe that? Literally the first thing we see. So of course I ran over and I gave her some stickers and wooden nickels and talked to her. She said her name was Jennifer, and she did get custom made on a jersey website, the Yankovic jersey, and she, I guess, goes to Big Slick every year, and she's a big Weird Al fan. So what are the odds that that's the first person we see? So I was very excited to do that, and then we went over and we got in the line, and so this is probably 4 p.m. at this point, and the doors are supposed to open at 4:30. So we had about half an hour waiting in line, and there was a huge line. Like, I was like, who's going to actually show up early? Well, a lot of people. And they didn't seem like they were necessarily there for the Big Slick thing. I think they were there because it was free t-shirt day at the stadium.
Oh, okay.
So there's all these people excited for shirts. And so while we're waiting, we see like 10 matching giant white vans driving up to where the gate is. And we're like, oh, I bet that's the celebrities. So Dan saved our spot in line, and Aaron and I ran over, and we missed the first van or two, and we're like, all right, well, hopefully Al wasn't in that van and we'll get to see him. And unfortunately he was in that first van or two, so we did not see Al, but we saw Joe Gatto and Murr from the Impractical Jokers. We saw Will Forte, of course, from Weird the Al Yankovic Story.
Right.
We saw my friend Seth Herzog, Ariel Winter from Modern Family, Richard Christie from The Howard Stern Show, Sean Evans from Hot Ones, that YouTube show where Weird Al ate the vegan hot wings, and then, of course, music legend Sheryl Crow. But no Weird Al, unfortunately. But we saw them all rush in, and people are freaking out and waving and stuff. And shortly after they arrived, it started raining again. And spoiler alert, it didn't stop raining. So we're standing in line, we're getting rained on, and 4:30 on the dot, they decided they will open the doors. And so we're still waiting, we're waiting. But we see there's like a handicap line that people are getting in early. And so Aaron's like, well, I'm 8 months pregnant. I wonder if that counts as like, you know, handicap or accessible, or,
right.
You know, not that she was handicap or accessible, but it, you know, being 8 months pregnant and uncomfortably standing in the rain.
Sure.
For half an hour should be worth something. But they said, no, nice try. They were like really snotty about it. And when she turned around, everyone around us who was in line, she said everyone had a shocked look on their face that they were so rude to her. Man. So we finally got in, we got our free shirts, and then there was someone handing out programs, Big Slick programs. And so I got one, Aaron got one, and then Dan goes, oh, no, thank you. And I immediately was like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'll take his. And then I had to lecture Dan, and Aaron joined in, that anytime you're at a Weird Al related anything, if they offer you something, you always say yes, just in case. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was raining, so those programs got a little crummy. But I was able to get more later, Dave. Don't worry.
Okay.
I got you a good one.
Well, thank you.
So we get in, and we're going to head to our seats, but the pre-show stuff they explicitly told us that our tickets are not valid until the game. So it was general admission. So even if someone was sitting in our seats, we couldn't sit in our seats unless they were open. So it was like kind of weird. So we're like, okay, that's kind of odd. So we still went over to that kind of area where our seats were for the regular game. And there's a huge tarp covering the field because it's raining, and we're not sure if this game is going to happen. The game was supposed to start, the celebrity game was supposed to start at 5 p.m. and it did not start at 5 p.m. But they did start entering the field slowly, and we did see some celebrities coming out, and we're like, okay, we got to run down to the front. So we got as close as we could. There was a lot of people kind of crowding around that one little area. And we did see Al come out, and Al, he was wearing jersey number 17, which I was surprised about. I'm like, you'd think Weird Al would have jersey 27.
I mean, even your friend Jennifer had Weird Al Yankovic jersey 27.
Right?
Why couldn't the Big Slick people give Weird Al jerseys 27? But okay, 17, that's still a good number.
It still has half of it. I mean, it's got the 7. So we saw Al and we waved, and he's like, hey, Ethan. And so Erin took my phone and she shoved it under and handed it to him. She's like, this is Ethan's phone. So he's like, okay. So he took a couple pictures with us, and he's like, hey, how you doing? It's like, I'm good. I'm like, you think you're going to get to play? And he's like, I don't know. It really didn't seem that likely at that point.
Right.
Sure enough, around 5:30, so 30 minutes after they were supposed to start, they started pulling the giant tarp off of the baseball diamond.
Okay.
And I had never seen this before, but Erin said, like, on TikTok, you can see videos where people trip while they're pulling it and they get stuck under there because it's such a big tarp and you can't do anything.
Right.
Nobody
it's
slipped.
It's filled with water. Yeah,
it's filled with
a heavy
water.
tarp. Absolutely.
But so they take it off and they flip it over and they fold it. They do all this stuff with it. And finally, like closer to like 5:45, they start doing some introductions of the celebrities, and it seems that we're going to actually get the game going.
Oh, cool.
But I did notice they took off the big tarp, but they still left 2 little tarps. There was one over the pitching mound, and then there was one like in an area just in front of the home plate. So I don't know if those are like special important areas that can't get wet. I don't really know, but they left those 2 little tarps on there. And so they do these introductions, like 3 or 4 celebrities, and then they have a child, one of the patients from Children's Mercy, actually there. And they're like, you know, this is, you know, Paul Rudd, Jason Sudeikis, and Heidi Gardner, and they're playing for, you know, this kid. And it was really sweet. You know, they show the kids, and everyone's cheering for them. And they go through all of them, and it's really sweet. And so then finally they go through all that, and then the game actually starts at 6 p.m., so about an hour late. Al is on the white team, so he has a white jersey, and I noticed a few other people on his team that we may recognize, Dave. Sam Levine, past podcast guest. Robert Smigel, a.k.a. Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, also on Al's team. Will Forte was on his team. Eric Stonestreet, he's one of the big hosts of the event. He, of course, shows up in the Tacky music video. Richard Christie from The Howard Stern Show, and Heidi Gardner from SNL, and a few others were on Al's team. And I was looking really closely. I'm like, why did Al not get 27? And that is because Blake Vogt, he's a magician, he had number 27. So I don't know how that happened, Dave. I don't know if it was just random, but I was bummed. And I don't know who Blake Vogt thinks he is, that he can, maybe he did magic to get that number. Maybe he's just a big Weird Al fan and he wanted 27 because he's a Weird Al fan.
That could be.
I don't know.
That could be.
And then I noticed my friend Seth Herzog, he was on the blue team along with Paul Rudd and a bunch of others. And so they're ready to start, and we see Al like sort of like looking around, and he's like looking at his hands, and he like goes up to someone and starts pointing at his hands. And so Aaron and I are like, oh no, did Al like hurt his hand? Or, you know, we're all nervous because anything with Weird Al, we're just nervous. We want him to be okay, you know. We got to protect him at all costs. And it turns out he was motioning because since he was playing the outfield, he needed a glove. So someone got him a glove, and then he goes out in the outfield. And it's so funny because, you know, some of the younger celebrities, they're taking like first base and third base, like some of the you know, more relevant positions. Well, Al goes as far out in the outfield as he possibly can go. He goes all the way to the back fence, and Eric Stonestreet does the same thing, but on the opposite side of the field. And these are like celebrities playing. They're not hitting the home runs. They're going to go out there. But Al knew what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. He did not want to have to do too much, I guess. And, they're playing the game, and of course, they're letting foul balls go, and they're just letting people run. And
it's for fun.
Yeah, it's just for a goof. So, the mascot of the Royals was, playing home base, and he would always drop the ball if he was throwing it and that kind of stuff, just to be kind of fun and just let people actually goof around. And there was a couple times where when people went up to bat, they were wearing a GoPro attached to a hat, and so I haven't seen any videos of that, but I think Rob Riggle came out and he did that, and he was running the bases with that on. So
I've seen a few of those videos online of a couple of celebrities doing that. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So they go a couple rounds, a couple innings, and Al is one of the last people to bat. I almost thought that he wasn't going to get a chance to bat, but he did get to go up. And again, Al starts looking at his hands, and it turns out nobody gave him a bat. So first they didn't give him glove, they didn't give him a bat. So finally he gets the bat, and I'm sure everyone listening has seen what transpired. And I know we talked about it already this episode, but Al got in his famous batting stance, as he's done for previous years. He squats down about as far down as he can go, and he hits the ball, and it kind of goes. And then, like I said, there was that tarp still down in front of the home plate. And so Al starts running, and his foot catches some, it's still covered in water.
Right.
He slips and he falls, and my heart stopped. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe Weird Al just fell. I'm like, I'm so nervous. Oh, meanwhile, on the internet, now this video has gone viral, and people are like, oh, Weird Al fell in front of Paul Rudd. I was having heart palpitations, Dave. I was very, very nervous about that. But luckily, he got right up, and he ran to first base where Paul Rudd was stationed. And the next hit came, Al was able to get over to second base. And then once Al was on second base, that's when the game ended. And so he didn't have a chance to even go to third base or score. But his team won. So Team Weird Al did win. They got a trophy. They all took a picture and stuff. And before we even went to Kansas City, Aaron and I were talking to each other I don't know if we even care about the baseball game. We just want to see Weird Al, So we were kind of thinking we weren't going to stay. We were just going to stay for the celebrity softball game.
Right.
But I reached out to Sam Levine in advance, and I told him that I was thinking of just staying for the celebrity thing, and he said, well, there is something that we usually do during the 7th inning stretch. So it's okay, well, maybe I will stay just in case. Dave, I've flown across the country for less of a chance to see Weird Al than that. So we decided we'd stay, and there was still some time for them to change it over. So we just went into this area to get dry because it was still raining at this point. And it was this little kind of area with there was a couple concession stands, and there was some tables and little seating and bathrooms and stuff. So we're just hanging out there, and we noticed this kind of group of people crowded around this one area over by the women's restroom. And so we're like, what is going on over there? So we go over, and we see 3 or 4 of these guys with all of these posters and photographs and Funko Pops to get signed. And we're like, oh, this must be where the celebrities go or come in and out. So we're like, well, if these guys are standing there and we have nothing to do, we might as well stand here. And
right.
So we're standing there, and maybe every 10-15 minutes a celebrity would walk out and get hounded by these guys, and then they would go, and I don't even know what they were doing, maybe getting some food or something, and they'd come back. So we're like, well, we got to stay here in case Al comes out. So we're waiting, and Richard Christie from the Howard Stern Show came out, so I got to say hi to him. I got a picture with him. Then there was some VIP suite where all the celebrities were going to go and do a meet and greet and then come back. So we went over when they started all coming out at once, but the security was not letting anyone talk to anyone or let them stop. Someone asked people for an autograph. Like, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to sign anything right now. And so they kept walking, and then eventually they came back, and they came back kind of like one by one. And so we're there, and I got to get a picture with my all-time favorite superhero actor. Because, I mean, superheroes aren't real, Dave. Paul Rudd. I got a picture with Paul Rudd, and he was so nice.
Awesome.
And, you know, you have mere seconds. I was like, Paul, I was at the Poughkeepsie show that you were at on Weird Al's last tour. And he's like, oh man, that was such a great show. And then Gaten Matarazzo from Stranger Things. He's the guy from Stranger Things who was wearing the Weird Al shirt in the show. So I got to
very cool.
Get a picture with him. And I told him I'm a huge Weird Al fan. He's like, oh my God, me too. And then, of course, Sam Levine was there, and we hugged. And before he left, he's like, hold on 1 second. And he goes to one of the security guys who's like kind of helping crowd control. He's like, you see this guy right here? And he points to me. He's like, that's Ethan. He should get to talk to Weird Al. Make sure of it. He's a cool guy. I'm like, thank you, Sam. So after Sam left, I did see Robert Smigel. I could say hi to him. I could say hi to Seth Herzog. And then sure enough, Dave, Weird Al starts walking through, and he was just kind of going by. He was like, he wasn't really stopping for pictures or anything.
Yeah.
But this one woman who was waiting with us the whole time, who we met earlier, and she saw that Aaron and I were both wearing Weird Al shirts and stuff. She grabbed Al's arm. She's like, hey, you got to take a picture with this guy. And he's like, okay. And he turns, and then it's me and Aaron. So we took another picture with him, and I said, Al, are you okay? Because this is, an hour after he slipped and fell.
Right.
And I was like, are you okay after that fall? He's like, I'm totally fine. He's like, Ethan, are you okay? I was like, no, I'm still a mess over it. So, they were being rushed along pretty quickly. But then Will Forte came through. I was able to grab a picture with him. I'm such a huge Will Forte fan. I told him how much I loved him in Weird. And he was like, oh, it was so much fun. And then as he's walking away, he turned and he said, have you seen the Weird Al movie? I was like, yeah. I don't know if you were saying it to someone else, but it all went very quickly, but it was very cool getting to see everyone.
Very cool.
So we're riding the high, and then it's getting to be the top of the 6th inning. We're like, all right, the 7th inning shirt's just coming up. Let's go actually look at these seats that we paid all this money for. Because we actually bought pretty good seats. So we go over to our seats, and there's like people just sitting in them. And so Aaron says to us, like, oh, it looks like someone's in our seats. And then one of the women who are sitting there, like, kind of snarks back. She's like, well, they were vacant. It's like, yeah, that doesn't mean you can just sit in someone's seats. So we go to our seats, and we're watching a little bit of the game, and the 7th inning stretch happens, and the celebrities start coming out on the field to sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game, which I guess is their tradition. So right. Al does finally come out. I was wondering, like, is Al even here? Because most of them were out there and they were already singing, and I still didn't see Al. But, of course, he finally came out, and he sang the last bit of the song, and he was actually wearing that GoPro helmet. So I'm really curious to see if any video shows up of Al singing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. So, that lasted like a minute, and then they left again. And we kind of looked at each other and we're like, well, let's stay for the rest of the 7th inning, and then we'll leave. So we stayed, and through the 7th inning, they ended up 3-2 with the Royals in the lead. So we're like, all right, we can leave. I'm sure the team will do fine. And then we looked at the score later. Right after we left, the other team scored 9 runs in the 8th inning. And the Royals ended up losing 8-11. So I guess we were their good luck charm.
That's a high scoring game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're getting kind of hungry because all we'd eaten were like pretzels and hot dogs. So I jokingly suggested, hey, how about we go to Hooters? And ultimately we did not go to Hooters. So we went to Twin Peaks, which I had never heard of. But it's basically, for those of you who don't know, it's basically Canadian themed Hooters. It's like, it's Hooters, but with a moose head on the wall. It was
pretty much the same thing.
It was kind of funny, and it was so much fun. I'm so glad that the celebrity softball game was not canceled, because that would have been such a bummer.
Right.
But that was our first day, and it was so much fun.
Well, it sounds like you had an amazing time at the softball game, and if you would have only stuck stuck around for a little bit longer, you could have seen a lot of action in the 8th and 9th innings of the Royals and Padres game.
I guess I could have, but I would have rather gone to Twin Peaks than see that. And so we slept in the next day. We were all exhausted. And reminder, Erin is 8 months pregnant.
Right. Yeah, true.
So she was still relaxing. Her ankles, were swollen. So I decided that I was going to split off and go to a place called Jerry's Bait Shop.
Oh, you know the place.
I know the place. So I went to this place, and I've sort of got a bespeckled history with this establishment. I'll tell that story another time. But for now, I'll just say it was a nice little dive bar. They had incredibly good pizza. I took a lot of pictures of all the Jerry's Bait Shop signs, and I got a Jerry's Bait Shop baseball cap.
Very cool.
I would have gotten, you one, and I know I'm sure our very own Jackson Scoggins would have loved a hat, but they were cash only, $25, and I only had $45, so I could only get one.
Oh, wow.
So I got back to the hotel, and we went to T-Mobile Center for the big show. And before you even get your ticket scanned, there's this big cloth banner with like a collage of all sorts of pictures and stuff from other Big Slicks, because I think this was their 15th year. And right in the center of it, a little tiny picture of Al doing his famous batting stance. So, of course, Erin and I had to pose with the little picture of Al doing that. And so we got in. I got extra programs. Dan, now fully trained, got extra programs.
Excellent. Good work, Dan.
And I really wanted to check out the merchandise because I didn't see it when I was at the baseball game. And so I get to the merch stand, and they hand me this big bag of caramel corn or something. And it was like covered in blue sugar and white sugar.
Huh.
And they're like, yeah, it's free. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's awesome. And it was really good. And they were sold out of some of the smaller things. Like they had a bottle opener that I really wanted, but they were sold out of that. So I got a cool t-shirt. It's black and it says Big Slick 24 in black print on a black shirt.
Cool.
Exactly my favorite color combination.
Yep.
And we went to our seats, and Dave, this was so bizarre. So it's like an arena. It's like where you'd go to see a hockey game.
Yeah.
We were on the far end of the long rectangle, so the shorter end, and then on the other side, it was cut off, so there was the stage. So we were the second row up in the seats after the floor. We had perfect straight-on view of the stage. But my seat, whatever reason, was right next to like another row of chairs, but it was at an angle. So when the seats went down, I'm trying, I don't know how to describe this, but basically if I sat in my seat with my legs out straight and the person next to me sat with their legs out straight, we would have to overlap our legs because they weren't facing forward.
Interesting.
It was really bad. It was not good. So the seating was not great, but they did have a couple cool things around the arena. They had a 360 cam, so I did get one of those things where they spin around and take your picture a bunch of times. So
nice.
I got a little GIF made, and then I ran into one of our friends and podcast supporters, Wendy Lippert.
Oh, nice. Wendy was there. Awesome.
As far as I know, outside of me and Erin and her husband and Wendy, I don't know if anyone else that we know personally was actually at the Big Slick event. So it was really cool that I got to run into her. And she got to the arena a little early and somehow stumbled her way into a VIP event that usually costs $2,000.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
without the badge or anything, they just let her in, and so she got to see a preview. So they had the silent auction on the website, which is where they were selling the Weird Al tickets and some other stuff.
Right.
Then they had a VIP only live auction, and then during the show itself, they also auctioned off a couple things. And so at this VIP only auction that Wendy somehow got into, they had a thing that was spend a day with Will Forte in LA, and it sold for $70,000.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So she was telling me all about it. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's incredible. Like I was even thinking like, oh, I would probably pay $1,000 to spend a day with Will Forte.
Right.
No, I'm not going to spend $70,000.
Yeah, they had those listed up on the auction site, but you couldn't bid on them. I think you had to be there in person. But yeah, I did see the Will Forte one, and I said, "Oh, you know what? That would be kind of fun."
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have never expected it to go to $70,000. But good for them and good for charity.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I guess at that part of the auction, that was the highest raising item, and everyone was just blown away by it. So that was really cool. So waiting for the show to start, I actually start looking at this program for the first time now that I have like an excess of them, so I can afford to let my fingerprints get on it. I go right to the center section, the center staple, and that's where Weird Al's listed. And I'm reading, and I'm like, wait, there's a typo right here in Al's thing. And they wrote his hometown was Linwood, California, Lynn Wood. And of course, Linwood is only one N. And I wasn't confident, though. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's only one N. So I opened up my music app and I went to the album. I'm like, okay, it is one N.
Definitely one N, yes.
So then, Dave, I sent it to you and Kenneth and UHF, and I was like, hey, see if you guys can spot the error here. And you found a different error.
I saw the error immediately because it was said Al had won 5 Grammy Awards, but he had been nominated 16 times. And of course, he's been nominated 17 times, actually. So that was immediately jumped out to me.
I didn't even read the rest of it. I just saw the Linwood, and I was like, oh, I got to show Dave and the guys. And yeah, that's so funny that they got 2 things wrong. I can't believe it. Mr. Word Crimes himself had the errors. And I didn't really look at anything else to check if there were other errors. I don't know if I would know if like the number of nominations for Sheryl Crow was correct, but
right. I'm sure somebody on the Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Sheryl Crow podcast is complaining about something in Sheryl Crow's biography right now.
I'm sure they are. So the show started, and it starts with them one by one introducing every celebrity in rapid fire, kind of like at a wedding when they introduce the wedding party. And so from 2 different corners, all the celebrities start walking out, and they walk up, and the whole floor was seated at round tables, and that's where all the VIP donors were. So you had to pay over $2,000 a ticket to get to sit down there. But they were getting like meals, and at one point I saw donuts being brought out to them. But these were the high rollers that were down there.
Right.
So celebrities walk out, they're like high-fiving everyone, and they walk up onto the stage. And it's a pretty deep stage with a bunch of couches on the back. And they sit down, and then once all those celebrities are out, then they introduced the hosts. So the main celebrities that put on Big Slick are 6 celebrities who are from Kansas City. And so Paul Rudd, Rob Riggle, Jason Sudeikis, Heidi Gardner, and Eric Stonestreet, they came out, and they were the hosts for the evening. Now, typically David Koechner is one of those 6 hosts, but he was not there, and there was no explanation as to why he wasn't there or his absence, which was very confusing because they just didn't address it. But later I found out that it was because his daughter was graduating, and it was the same day, and he couldn't miss his daughter's graduations. And Paul, Rob, Jason, Heidi, and Eric covered for him fine.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. So they introduced it, and then this was so cool. They started off the show with a reprisal of the Superfans sketch from SNL, which is more commonly known as Da Bears. And so Robert Smigel, of course, is one of the original people from that. But also from Cheers, George Wendt was one of the other original guys from SNL in that. And so the 2 of them were there in their costumes. It was completely set up exactly like it was on SNL, and they were like talking about like, oh, now we're going to talk about the greatest football team of all time, the Bears, and of course the whole arena starts booing because this is Kansas City Chief territory.
Of course, how could they not?
So I think I read that this was the first time they've reprised the sketch since Chris Farley passed away. And you can actually watch this whole Superfans thing on YouTube. They said that their one guy had Ozempic, and so then Jason Sudeikis comes out with this super oversized jersey, but of course he's very skinny in comparison,
right?
And so he was one of the guys. And then they eventually bring out Travis Kelce, and he's there, and they poke fun at a couple things, and then Patrick Mahomes, their star quarterback from the Chiefs, comes out, and it was very funny. It was a really fun way to start the show. Jeff Ross performed. He's the Roastmaster General, who you see on all the Comedy Central and Netflix roasts. And so he did some stand-up, and then he got some volunteers from the floor to go up, and he roasted them, and it was really funny.
Oh,
Just roasting people based on their looks and like, oh, well, this guy's definitely a pedophile, stuff like that. Which we found out later, one of the guys that he really was roasting was one of the super wealthy donors who bought a lot of the auction items. So It was really funny because later they kept showing him. We're like, wait, that's the guy he said looked like Tom Hanks from Philadelphia, So that was really funny. Then Sean Evans, who hosts Hot Ones on YouTube, he did a game show called Big Hot Slick Ones, and they got a small group of celebrities as Team Heidi versus Team Paul. And I think most of them in the teams were like SNL cast members or people who've been on SNL. And they answered SNL related trivia questions, and the team who got it wrong had to eat an increasingly hot wing. And Paul Rudd's team got every single question right. So Heidi's team had to eat all these really hot things.
Oh, boy.
Lots of arguing going on. So then they brought out David Cook. He is a American Idol winner. They brought him out to perform. So that was when I took a bathroom break because I didn't care about the music acts as much, and it was a good time. So I went to the bathroom, and then I grabbed myself a Coke Zero, and I was just thinking to myself, you know what? Pregnant Erin probably would appreciate a bottle of water. So I bought her a bottle of water.
Oh, how sweet.
When I got back to the seat, I handed her the water. She's like, that was fast. I was like, me going to the bathroom? Okay. Like, I didn't really understand. Then later I looked at my phone. I had turned notifications off. She had texted me saying, hey, if you go to concession, could you get me a bottle of water? So she texted me after I'd already gotten her the water. So that's why she said that was fast. So that was kind of funny.
Gotcha.
They did some live auction items. They did Spend a Day with Heidi at SNL. And then other SNL cast members who were there, they donated their personal comp tickets. So they ended up selling for $45,000 each to Spend a Day with Heidi at the premiere of SNL. So they sold 5 of those at $45,000 each.
Excellent.
Jason Sudeikis had tickets for literally the next day in New York City to see the WNBA. So they auctioned that off. I think that went for like $35,000. And then they had this NFL package, and you can look up the details online if you're an NFL guy. I don't know that kind of stuff, but it was a lot of cool stuff for the NFL. And then they also said, and we have game-worn jerseys from both Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. So those guys were literally there. So they put them on, and, they didn't fit very well. That thing, it ended up selling for $250,000, $250,000.
Wow.
Which was just absolutely insane. I think it went to one of those guys who got roasted by Jeff Ross. So then after, everyone was regaining consciousness after seeing $250,000 get spent, Kumail Nanjiani came out and did some stand-up, and he, of course, hosted Meltdown with Jonah Ray, which was the Comedy Central show and live show, and Al appeared on that. They had music by Kevin Morby. They did some more fundraising where they sold for $15,000 each footballs signed by the two, Travis and Patrick, and they were tossed them around. And they had music from Logan Mize. They had stand-up from Fortune Feimster, the Impractical Jokers Joe and Murr. They came out and did some comedy, and they showed a clip from the show that has never been seen before. And then Sheryl Crow came out to end the show. She did a song called Real Gone, which is apparently from the movie Cars.
Okay.
She did the song Soak Up the Sun, which is one
nice.
of the 2 songs I'd ever heard of that she did. And then she did All I Want to Do, which, of course, Dave, Weird Al fans will know best from the alternative polka on Bad Hair Day, which was really great to hear. And part of me was like, I don't really care about Sheryl Crow. But then when she started singing that one, I was like, okay, I care about Sheryl Crow because she gave Al permission to put All I Want to Do into the alternative polka. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to support her for the rest of her act. More so than I was already. I wasn't booing her, but So while she's singing that, she said, I need some dancers. And there's a TikTok trend where people roll up their shirt and they paint a face on their belly. And so 2 different dancers came out, a guy and a girl with big round bellies painted with faces, and they were just awkwardly dancing. And it was later revealed to be Seth Herzog, my friend, and Aisling B from Taskmaster. So that was kind of funny. So then the big finale was they revealed how much money was raised over the course of the evening and for all of Big Slick 2024. And it was just under $4 million, $3,973,637. It was a record for them. They've been doing this for 15 years. They've never raised that much money in one weekend. There was confetti. People were freaking out, standing ovation. It was so cool. It was so cool. And then they tabulated how much money Big Slick has raised in the 15 years it's been around, and it's over $25 million. It's just so cool.
Incredible.
Because it goes to this amazing charity, the Children's Hospital, the Children's Mercy in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. And so then the big grand finale is all the celebrities on stage, and everyone in the audience was invited to, sang the Cheers theme song, Where Everybody Knows Your Name. So
yes.
it was
Nice.
very nice. And so that was technically the only thing Al did at the thing. I mean, he was announced and he walked out and he was on stage the whole time, and you could kind of see him hanging out, and you could see people going over and like asking him for selfies and stuff. And we actually did see Al and Travis take that selfie that went on to go viral. And
nice.
It was great. It was so much fun, Dave. I was so glad I went. It was so fun getting to see Al in these new ways that I've never seen Al before. So it was a very fun experience, and I was really happy I got to go and got to see Erin and her husband Dan, and run into Wendy and meet all those cool people. So a lot of fun, and I'm really happy that I got to be part of such a great cause.
Well, thank you so much, Ethan. It sounds like you had an absolutely amazing time, and thank you for sharing every weird detail about your weekend in Kansas City. One thing, though, if I was there, I would have made you stay for the rest of the baseball game.
Dave, I would have gladly let you watch the baseball game while I was busy meeting the world's most famous Weird Al cosplayer, Paul Rudd.
And now it's time for what happened in last week's Discover Darwin ad-related news.
It has come to our attention that during episode 231-inch, the ad for Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota, was made using AI voice clones of Dave and I.
Ethan and I had nothing to do with this ad, and after a thorough investigation, all blame must be put on intern Frank.
We commend intern Frank for working with our AI overlords to create last week's glitch-free Discover Darwin ad.
Wait, what?
Artificial intelligence is a fantastic tool, and we are looking forward to eventually retiring from podcasting and passing the hosting baton down to our flawless AI voice clones.
Wait a minute. I know those awkward inflections anywhere. You're not the real Ethan. You're his AI voice clone.
You're one to talk, Mr. Skinson, that you dive, I steer. Alright, your rights are probably should do not answer uncomfortable pauses in the middle of a sentence.
So make sure to wear a hat made of aluminum foil on your next artificially unintelligent expedition.
Discover Darwin, more than just the twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to attempt to visit www.discoverdarwin.biz.
Well, listen to that. It sounds like we have a call on the 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. Let's hear that voicemail, intern Frank.
Hey there, Dave and Ethan. It's your old pal Chris, the cartoon-loving geek from Canada. And, well, I can tell by the old Gilligan's Island-themed clock on the wall that once again it's time to celebrate Ethan's birthday! Ha-ha! Happy birthday, old buddy. And to help celebrate this special occasion, I've got something special for you. You remember a while back when you told me how you tried to sell that idea of yours to make a plush doll based on the monsters from that old B-rated sci-fi creature feature, Attack of the Radioactive Hamsters from a Planet Near Mars? Well, good news. I took your idea and pitched it to Spatula City Toys Incorporated. And they loved it! Haha, that's right. The doll is going into production now. It's going to glow in the dark and say 27 different things when you press its foot. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. It just kind of sucks that you're going to have to wait a while for it, though. Yeah, the company told me that the toy has to be put through the appropriate channels. You know, paperwork, product testing, focus groups, design, research and development, manufacturing, and so on. And they figure you and every other kid on this planet won't get to play with the toy until, Weasel Stomping Day of 2025. But the good news is they have agreed to let you see a full-colored illustration of what the toy will look like when it's finished. I actually helped them with that part. So you gotta admit that was a nice gesture on their part, am I right? Oh, and just in case you're wondering, Dave, yes, I got something for you too. But as always, you're gonna have to wait until July to get it. Look, I don't make the birthday rules, Dave, I just enforce them, okay? So until next time, you have yourself a happy birthday, Ethan. And my mom hopes you like that beer and broccoli flavored cake she sent you. Later, guys. Oh, wait a minute. One more thing. Frank, if you're listening, I got a call from your cousin Francois. He said something about he needs you to come bail him out of jail again. Something about being arrested for pulling all of the keys off of a bunch of cans at a Spam factory. I don't know what that's all about. And I'd love to help you, but I'm kind of busy washing my poodle, so you're on your own. Okay, that's it from me. Ciao.
Chris, thank you so much for the hilarious call and this incredible artwork. I really wish I didn't have to wait until Weasel Stomping Day 2025 for the real thing. But this drawing, and the cake your mom sent, is definitely going to hold me over until then.
I'm very jealous that Ethan will be getting this amazing plush toy. I might need to add it to my collection somehow.
Now, you may have seen this artwork on the 2000-inch social media last week, but just in case you didn't, it looks a lot like a cross between what you'd expect an angry hamster and Godzilla would look like.
And let's see, at 15 inches, that would make it 0.005% scale of the expected 280,000 inches, assuming the average non-radioactive hamster is 7 inches long and grows to 40,000 times their original size.
Well, hey, that sound means we've got yet another call on the 347 Spatula Hotline. All right, Frank, let's hear this call.
Hello, Dave Elvis Rossi and Ethan Ullman. This is y'all's very own Jackson Scoggins, time traveler extraordinaire and owner of Discover Darwin, more than just the twine ball. Today is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024, and I just received in the mail official, unofficial, bootleg Dave and Ethan Funko Pops. Man, I am overjoyed. I guess all these years of sponsoring the podcast has finally paid off. I finally got something out of it. I'm just kidding, but this is the best Ethan Ullman birthday I have ever had. You know, if these are the kind of things that come in the mail on Ethan Ullman's birthday, I'm gonna start celebrating it every year. Well, speaking of, how did you guys celebrate Ethan Ullman's birthday? All right, well, hope to talk to y'all later. Stay cheesy, and I'll see y'all in Austin.
How did I celebrate Ethan Ullman's birthday? Well, I celebrated it the same way I do every year.
And I celebrate Ethan Ullman's birthday the same way I do every year too. Conveniently forgetting it's Ethan's birthday and temporarily blocking his number from my phone.
Wow, sounds like we've got yet another call on the 347 Spatula Hotline. All right, intern Frank, you know what to do.
Hey, this is Claire.
And this is Weird the Al Yankovic Story animation producer by way of Augenblick Studios, Josh Pilch.
And we just celebrated Weird the Al Yankovic Story by way of Augenblick Studios animation producer Josh Pilch's birthday by singing karaoke. And we did a couple Weird Al songs. Together we sang Amish Paradise. And I sang Like a Pigeon. Now, Dave and Ethan, we must know, what are your Weird Al karaoke picks? And would you sing them on the podcast?
Yeah, and Ethan, I imagine yours are probably like really old songs because you're much, much older than I am, which is what I learned recently.
Practically decrepit. Thank you both for all you do, and toodaloo!
Thank you for the call, Claire and Josh. First of all, from all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we would like to wish you a very happy birthday, Josh.
And second of all, Josh, just because I'm 3 days older than you does not mean I'm decrepit. But it does mean you're a little whippersnapper that needs to get off my lawn!
And as far as karaoke picks go, I did once perform a spectacular version of Dare to Be Stupid at my bachelor party in Las Vegas, so I'll go with that.
Well, and Patreon supporters know that my pick is Amish Paradise. Not only did I record it for supporters of the podcast over on Patreon, as you may recall, I performed it in front of Rob Schneider and Big Slick veterans Robert Smigel and Sam Levine. So, yeah. That's my pick.
Once again, thank you both, and for everyone who calls into the 347 Spatula hotline for the amazing phone calls.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast is brought to you absolutely free thanks to our incredible sponsors, Burrito Burrito, Wizard Burger, our very own Jackson Scoggins, and Discover Darwin. Our podcast is also supported by everyone else in our Patreon family, with special thanks to our very own close personal friend level Patreon supporters, Kev Messick, Casey Killingsworth, Allison, Adriana Banana Yugovich, Gus and Alicia, Ron, Zeb, Dana B. and Beaker, UH Jeff, Blair, Kenneth, Ajax, Javier, Weird's Dream Date Nancy, Scotto Sorensen, Scott Sorensen, Scotto Brothers, Sorensen, Scott, Matt, Zach Casper, also thanks to Spunky Siren, Tom Dog, Trevor Son, Adrian, and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our rockin' and rollin' Weird Al podcast as heard in Weird the Al Yankovic Story commentary track, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch. There are awesome benefits like getting your name on the podcast, your very own private RSS feed, which gives you early access to each and every single bonus episode, and the self-satisfaction of doing something important with your otherwise pitiful, meaningless existence.
And don't forget to check out our official merchandise over at shop.2000inch.com. All proceeds from purchases go directly towards supporting our fine podcast. We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans, so be sure to join our Facebook community at group.2000inch.com and visit our Discord server for even more riveting Weird Al and Red Rum to Goody related conversations. You can find both of them linked on our website, as well as information about past episodes and guests over at 2000inch.com or weirdalpodcast.com.
Keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, X, Threads, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts so you do not miss a single episode. Not only does subscribing help the podcast, all of your auction bids will be winners and also benefit great charities. Plus, we also love it when we receive voicemail via our official patent-pending 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347 Spatula, as seen in the Illustrated Al, the songs of Weird Al Yankovic. That number is 347-772-8852. Give it a call or a text, and you might even hear your message in a future episode.
For this episode, we'd like to thank Aaron 3D Henry, Dan, Sam Levine, Seth Herzog, Big Slick, UH Jeff, Javier Valdez, Patrick Gaffney, Devlin Wilder, Joseph C. Krause, Claire Walsh, Josh Pilch, Chris, the cartoon-loving geek from Canada, and his mom, our very own Jackson Scoggins, and from all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we'd like to send our thoughts and love to our close personal friend, Joe Jaffa. Thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible podcast theme song, and thank you to the charitable Weird Al Yankovic, as this podcast probably would not exist without him. And a big thanks to all of you, our loyal listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you for choosing Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast. And until next time, remember to gill and chill, keep listening to Weird Al, and stay cheesy. So Ethan, you forgot to tell us, did you ever get Weird Al those snacks he asked for?
Dave, what are you talking about?
The Peanuts and Cracker Jacks.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm lost, Dave.
In the lyrics to Take Me Out to the Ball Game, they say, buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. So did you get them for Al or not?
Oh, no, I didn't. I was too busy rooting for the home team.
Well, Ethan, it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out of the old ball game.
I told you, I did leave early.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 232-inch.
Hey, it's a Palindrome episode. he should get to talk to Weird Al.